Welcome, welcome. For those of you just joining us, feel free to pop into the chat. Where are you joining the event from? Where are you right now? Whether that's where you're usually based or maybe you're traveling somewhere for work, where are you joining us from right now? So far, we've got New Delhi, Tulsa, Raleigh, and St. Paul. As you're joining the call, feel free to pop into the chat. Where are you joining us from? From Pretoria. Excellent. Welcome, welcome. Okay, good. We got 3 continents so far. I'm feeling good about this. Um, Many of you know, if you read my profile, I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I'm from the United States originally, but I'm based in Berlin. So here it's 6 o'clock, and I can hear some bells chiming the 6 o'clock hour in the distance here in Berlin. But so we've got a number of different time zones. Hamad's joining from Kuwait. Welcome. Very cool. We've got the Middle East represented. That's excellent. GMAT affects us all. GMAT affects us all. All right, it's 1 minute after the hour, so I've got a lot of stuff I want to share with you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, I would ask you to go ahead and mute yourself. When we get to Q&A toward the end of the session, then there will be an opportunity to unmute and ask questions or ask questions in the chat. But so let's go ahead and get going here. So our event today is Cool, Calm, and Laser Focused, How to Tame Your GMAT Test Anxiety. My name is Jennifer. I've been coaching for the GMAT for 11 years, and I'm very happy to be hosting this event on Leland and coaching lots of motivated candidates from around the world on Leland. It's a great platform, like I was sharing with Apurv before. Super group of coaches, people who are extremely expert in their fields, but also have a great sense of camaraderie and giving. We have a great network here. So if this is your first Leland event, or if this is your 5th or your 10th Leland event, I think you're in the right place in terms of finding a great place to help achieve your goals. Here's what we're going to be up to today in our session. A little welcome and introduction stuff from me, and then we're going to dig right into it. So when we think about how we can handle test anxiety and how you can manage your situation and feel cool, calm, and collected, really helps to understand what's usually going on with test anxiety. What are the roots of this? So we're going to talk a little bit about brain science and what we can call your saboteurs. We'll talk about what saboteurs are and how they affect you. Once we understand some of what's going on when you're dealing with test anxiety, then we can talk about what are the steps you can take to manage it. So I'm going to give you some success strategies that you can start with tonight, today, this morning, depending on where you are in the world, success strategies that you can use during your prep, during the exam itself, and even, believe it or not, after the exam. There are things you can do that will help set you up for success in the future as well. Then I hope we'll have about 10 minutes at the end for question and answer, and then we will wrap it up. So to tell you a little bit about me, I'm Jennifer. As I mentioned, I'm originally from the US, but I've been living in Europe for the last 12 years, first in Paris, now in Berlin, and I've been coaching GMAT for 11 of those years. Over this period of time, I've become a verbal section expert, and I've also served as an event host with GMAT Club. I also am really fortunate to be part of a small group of test prep experts that gets invited to official behind the scenes events with GMAC, the makers of the exam. So we get invited to annual meetings. So for me, that's often in London, although I'm going to one coming up in Barcelona. We really get to speak with the chief psychometrician, other test designers, and get some very concrete, from my perspective, amazingly detailed information about how the test really works. With the change to the GMAT focus that started last year, and now is, of course, the only version of the GMAT that is offered, I felt really fortunate to have this kind of inside scoop from the actual designers of the exam, what they were going for, exactly what was changing, and what was not changing, so that I could help prepare my clients to really know what to expect. In a former life, my background is in management of arts institutions and putting live entertainment on the stage. And so once upon a time, I worked at the Walt Disney Company in Central Florida, where I worked in show development and production, and also in the training and development team. So training and education has often been a focus for me. I also did some work in strategic planning as well. And so now I feel like with GMAT and admissions consulting, it's like strategic planning for people. Um, so it's good times. You will also notice Amanda is here from the Leland team. She's going to be helping out in the chat as well. But you'll notice she's already popped into the chat. By virtue of you signing up for this event today, you have scored yourself an exclusive discount code. I'm not giving this to anybody except for the people on this call. And this is a 15% off discount code for my packages if you book them by September 16th. So she's already dropped in the chat a link to my profile, so you can see some of the packages there. You can schedule an intro call with me if you'd be interested in working together, and you can take advantage of this lovely discount that I'm offering to you guys. Okay, to tell you a little bit about my philosophy with GMAT prep. My approach is that what we want to do here is help you build mental muscle that will actually outlast the test. My approach to coaching is not like, let's just crush the test and then walk away from it, and you can say, oh, I'm never going to think about that stuff again. I'm never going to use that again. Those are skills I'm never going to have to use again. My goal is that you come to the test extremely well prepared, cool, calm, and laser focused, but that you also walk away with knowledge that you can use in your master's program, in your MBA program, in your work life, perhaps even in your personal life. So that's what I mean by this kind of mental muscle that can outlast the test. So from my perspective, there are three pillars that we need to build when you're working on your GMAT prep. A lot of people focus on the first one, and the first one's important: content knowledge. So we absolutely need to know what is the exam content in quant, in logical reasoning, with reading comprehension, and in data analysis. So this is just the first leg of the stool, though. You might be terrific at solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, for example, but on the GMAT, you're never going to do that, or almost never going to do that. So you need the second leg of the stool as well. You need exam-specific skills and strategies. So this is a big piece of transferring that raw knowledge that you build about the content into, how am I really going to handle this on the GMAT? You need specific approaches for the way that GMAT asks you questions, for the resources that you have, specifically not a calculator, except in the data insights section, but thinking about what are the ways that you can handle the questions that the GMAT throws at you. And then the third leg of the stool. So for the first several years of my coaching, I was really focused on the first two legs of the stool. And actually, I thought that was all you needed. But more and more, the more students I worked with, I realized there is a third leg of this stool, and it is your mindset. Specifically, building a positive mindset that is one characterized by focus, confidence, endurance, and adaptability. You need all three of those things to handle the challenges that the GMAT is going to throw at you. So speaking of the GMAT, and also there might be some folks on this call who are preparing for the GRE. That's all good too. All of this will be relevant to you as well. If you have an exam coming up, drop in the chat, let me know, A, B, C, or D, when is your exam coming up? So either you can write A in the exam within the next 2 weeks, B, between 2 weeks and 2 months from now, C, your exam is more than 2 months from now, or D, maybe you don't have an exam currently scheduled, you're just testing the waters here and starting to work on your preps. So far, I see a number of B, 1A so far, so looking for what can we really work on within the next 2 weeks. But this is a nice range. This is good to see. Okay, so we will definitely be covering things that will be applicable to everybody in each of these situations. So things that you could put into practice immediately, things that you can build over the longer term, and even for those of you that don't have an exam scheduled yet, this can help you get your prep started in the right way. Okay, thanks for that. Let's turn the page. I've got another question for you. How does test anxiety affect you? How does test anxiety affect you? Do you find that you get questions wrong that you would normally be able to do? And this is also going to be, you can choose all that apply, put in all the letters that apply. If you get questions wrong that you would normally be able to do, that's A. If your test anxiety actually makes you consider not applying to programs that require exams, that's B. If it makes you doubt your own abilities and your potential, that's C. Or if you find that the days leading up to the exam are totally overshadowed by dread, that's D. You can go ahead and put your answer in the chat. I see several of these coming in so far. Many of us are feeling this in more than one way. So I see many of us responding with A, where you see your accuracy is compromised because of test anxiety. Seen a few people responding about not applying to, or at least considering not applying to programs that will require an exam. Many of us are responding with C, that it makes you doubt your own abilities and potential. And some of us also have this D, the days leading up to the exam are overshadowed by dread. Dude, this sucks. I mean, this is not what we want, obviously. I mean, thinking about this makes us doubt our own abilities and potential. We got to turn this upside down. The GMAT can have this effect on people. I've worked with hundreds of candidates over the past 11 years. I've absolutely seen people feeling all of these ways, but we cannot let it do this to us. I want you all to be able to look at your GMAT experience as perhaps a tough journey, but one that you can be proud about. One where you felt that you overcame these obstacles. One where you were able to develop a higher level of focus, and one that could in fact confirm your plans for the future and not make you doubt them. So those are some of my goals for our conversation today. I want to get thinking about where this all is coming from. Sometimes we're talking about the GMAT, for example, with friends and family, and they're like, oh, you're too stressed, you need to have no stress. If anyone's family or friends maybe giving them this advice, you need to de-stress, you shouldn't be so stressed about this exam. The truth is, not all stress is negative. There is this concept of eustress, positive stress. So I'll show you a chart here, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you a data insights question about this chart. But if you look at our graph here, on the x-axis, we've got the level of pressure, starting from low and going up to very high. And on the y-axis, we've got our level of performance, again, starting at low and going up to high. So some stress is helpful for us. Some stress can be motivating for us to the extent that it can help us improve our performance. If we get out of this boredom zone into the comfort and perhaps into the stretch zone, and so you'll see this marked on the chart here. Here's our ideal zone where we've got a moderate, possibly even a high level of pressure. But I imagine that many of you on the call today are feeling more like this, that you're seeing where the stress is causing distress, the negative kind of stress that is hurting your performance. So why is this happening? We'll talk a little bit of brain science for us. So in your brain, there are two regions that I want to talk about. And I should say too, I am not a neuroscientist, but over the course of my 11 years of working with people on the GMAT specifically, after the first 2 or 3 years, I realized I really wanted to get under this, to dig into the subject of test anxiety and to understand why people that I saw who were so competent were not able to deliver and not able to show what they knew on the GMAT. And so I did a lot of reading and research in the areas of performance psychology. A lot of this had to do with sports psychology, which was unexpected to me because I was the kind of person in high school who might call herself a mathlete, not an athlete, but over the years, I've actually come to really appreciate this. The value of sports psychology, because high-level athletes are also facing some of these kinds of intense situations where they're really under pressure to perform. And so from performance psychology, from sports psychology, from neuroscience, we learned there's two regions of the brain that we might want to think about. One of them is what can be called our lizard brain. So this is our amygdala. This is our, some people call this your caveman brain. So when you respond from a fight or flight kind of mentality, or sometimes it's fight, flight, or freeze, when you get that feeling like, I can't do anything, I'm really scared, I feel like there's a danger here, this is your amygdala driving the situation. This is your lizard brain. This was really helpful for humans when we were living in caves, when we were nomadic and we needed to look out for another tribe that could come attack us, or a predator that could be dangerous to us. This lizard brain, so to speak, this was really helpful. The problem for us now as modern people is that this survival mechanism gets triggered by situations that are not actually threatening your survival, that are not physically dangerous to you. And sometimes this is what's happening to us when it comes to the GMAT, that our lizard brain is getting activated and we get stuck in this fight, flight, or freeze mentality where we're not able to access our higher order reasoning. Our higher order reasoning takes place very much in our prefrontal cortex. So we could think of this as your wizard brain. This is where you're able to access your creativity, your innovation, your new ways of thinking about things. This is where you want to be operating from when you're looking at GMAT problems, right? Sometimes when you're delivering at a high level on the exam, you're going to see questions that are asking you for creative solutions to solve the question. And if you're stuck in your lizard brain in fight, flight, or freeze, it's going to be very hard to access that higher order thinking that you know you can do. A concept that I have found helpful is that our brain produces lots of thoughts, but not all of them are facts. And sometimes this is what's causing us to get into this fight, flight, or freeze mode. Our brain is producing thoughts that tell us we're in danger, that tell us things are life or death, and that these are not actually facts. So part of what I want us to learn today is how we can listen to that whole group of thoughts and actually open the door and ask some of them to leave, to get some of these thoughts that are not helping us out of our mind, to politely escort them away so that we can just take the facts or the helpful thoughts that we need. And so for this, there's a concept called SAGE and saboteurs that is very helpful. In addition to my GMAT coaching, I also coach for a program called Positive Intelligence, which is built on some of these concepts of SAGE and saboteurs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end of the call as well. So let's think about who's talking. When you're having thoughts during the GMAT, is it your SAGE brain talking or is it your saboteurs talking? When your SAGE brain is talking, this is this wizard brain. The middle of your prefrontal cortex is typically the area that's activated. The SAGE brain motivates you through positive emotions. It includes empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. This is often where we are accessing our higher order thinking. Again, this is where we want to be using our brains when we're working on the GMAT. On the other hand, it's our saboteurs talking when it's in our brainstem, activating the limbic system, and when we feel that we're being motivated through negative emotions like fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, or insecurity. And that's that fight, flight, or freeze mentality. We want to be working with the SAGE, but in order to do that, we need to recognize what our saboteurs are. And by recognizing it, this is the idea of name it to tame it. By recognizing what your typical saboteurs are, this is the first step in being able to shut them off, to open the door, escort those saboteurs out of your thoughts. So let's talk about what some of the typical exam saboteurs are. So we all have saboteurs. I have saboteurs, and all of us have saboteurs. But what's helpful is to start to recognize who are our typical saboteurs. Of the group of us on the call today, there may be some of us who have the first two, mainly. Some of us will have the last three mainly. You may discover after you've talked about this or after you're thinking about this, you may discover, yeah, I have one of these, and I think there's another saboteur I have, and I might call it this. So let me tell you about these 5 most common saboteurs that I notice when I am talking to GMAT candidates. The first one, super popular saboteur, I call it doom time. Doom time is the voice in your head that says you don't have enough time to do this well. There's so many of the candidates that I work with who say, I'm great at doing the questions when the clock is off, but as soon as I turn that timer on, I can't think anymore. Part of what's happening is that this doom time saboteur, you could picture this as like a passenger in your car or someone sitting on the back of your bike or of your motorcycle who's talking in your ear, and they're saying things like, you don't have enough time to do this well. You need to go faster. Why aren't you going faster? Can't you do this faster? Can't you read this faster? How much time do I have left? Does anybody have this voice? If you ever have doom time in talking to you during the exam or during practice exams, write doom time in the chat. If you think you ever have this doom time saboteur, you can write doom time. Doom time all the time. Yeah. So this is the first part of shutting this down, is recognizing that, first of all, that it's there, that it's a saboteur, and that it's not right. So all of our saboteurs are rooted in good intentions. Like doom time is trying to help you, right? Actually, all these saboteurs are trying to help you. Doom time is trying to help you manage their time. They're just giving you terrible advice. They're telling you you don't have enough time to do this well, and then you listen to them, and then you believe them. Don't. So we'll talk about ways to shut these guys down. Another typical saboteur I call the discounter. So this saboteur is the voice that discounts, that puts down all of the good things that you've done. So if I could make a picture of this, I would think about, like, if you go to a discount store and there's someone going around with one of these price gun things and they're putting a discount on everything. So, oh, this used to be worth this and now we've marked it down 99%. So this is this voice in your head that says, oh yeah, I got 9 out of those 12 questions right, but the 9 that I got right, they don't count. I'm only focusing on the 3 that I got wrong, and now I'm going to beat myself up about the 3 that I got wrong. Another typical saboteur, I see this with a lot of GMAT candidates, especially those of you who have a really strong quant background. I call this brute force. The brute force saboteur is the one that says you just need to work harder, you need to work longer, you need to study for 4 hours after work. I don't care if you finish at 1 a.m. You need to work harder, you need to work longer, and you need to do the math the right way because shortcuts are for the weak. This one I call brute force. So sometimes it happens, I'm working with candidates who have a terrific quant background. They majored in engineering or finance in their undergrad, but that they find when it comes to the GMAT, they're underperforming on the quant. And one of the reasons is this brute force saboteur that tells them you have to do it the long way. You have to take every step possible. Shortcuts are cheating. This is not how you should work. So this is the brute force saboteur. Brute force is also the one who tells you you need to study for 4 hours after work, even when you know your focus is not there anymore. Another typical saboteur I call please like me. Please like me is the voice in your head that makes you feel good or bad about yourself, depending on whether you got a question right or wrong. If you get a question right, you feel awesome. If you get a question wrong, you think you're the worst candidate in the world. This is where we're actually end up basing our feelings about ourselves based on whether we got a question right or wrong. And so as a result, we get really worried about getting a question wrong. And then we have dysfunctional behaviors during the test. I call this saboteur, please like me. The 5th most common saboteur that I see is the test victim. The test victim is the one that wants you to rewatch the mental film of every test you've ever done that has ever gone poorly. Maybe in 3rd grade, you had a test where you did not read the directions correctly. And as a result, you got a lot of questions wrong, and your teacher had some not so nice things to say about you. And you remember that still to this day. And even when you're doing the GMAT, sometimes the saboteur, the test victim saboteur, brings that mental footage back up for you. Or maybe there was a class in your high school, your secondary school, or your undergraduate preparation where there was a test or there were some tests that did not go well. This test victim saboteur is like, hey, it's time to do a practice test for the GMAT. Hey, let's take a second and rewatch all the tests that have ever gone badly in your life. That's test victim. I've talked about these 5 so far. Who recognizes any of these saboteurs? If you recognize one or more of these saboteurs for yourself, I already asked about doom time, but if you recognize one or more of these saboteurs in yourself, you can write it in the chat. Do you recognize the discounter telling you that the things you do right don't count? Do you recognize brute force? Do you recognize please like me? Do you recognize this test victim where it wants you to rewatch every exam that's ever gone badly for you before? Mm-hmm. So I see some of us have got, several of us have got doom time, as we talked about. The discounter seems to be very relevant to several of us. Brute force. We have a lot of brute force in this group. Work harder, work longer, shortcuts are for the weak. Please like me. A few of us feel this one as well. And a few of us also have that test victim, not so useful voice. So, as I mentioned, each of these saboteurs are actually rooted in a good intention. So, the test victim, for example, who's making you rewatch that mental footage of things that have gone wrong, the test victim's trying to protect you, actually. They're trying to protect you from a bad feeling in the future. Brute force doesn't want you to be lazy, right? Brute force wants you to reach your potential. And so they're trying to motivate you that way. Um, the discounter is trying maybe to keep you humble. So there are some good intentions in these saboteurs, but they take it too far in a way that becomes dysfunctional for you on the exam. And so we might say, are there any aspects of these saboteurs that are helpful? And so for that, we could think about, is pain ever helpful for us? We could say that pain in this context, so the beginning of the feeling of a saboteur, the beginning of the feeling of anxiety, it can be helpful to us just in the same way that pain is, as a warning sign. If you put your hand on a hot stove, pain is immediately helpful because it tells you you're on a hot stove, take your hand off. And so I would encourage you now, when you start to hear those voices of those saboteurs, think about it like you have just put your hand on the hot stove. Take it off. We're going to talk about how to take it off. But let's not pretend that the saboteurs are helping you. Even though they want to help you, they are causing dysfunction in the way that you're handling the GMAT. And so I want you to think about, when you recognize either those voices, or perhaps you know you have other saboteurs, other persistent thoughts that are getting in your way and sabotaging your performance. As soon as you recognize the first voice of that saboteur, the first voice of that unhelpful thought, let's think about intercepting it. When a saboteur starts talking to you, you want to learn to intercept it, get in its way, say, I hear you, doom time, but we're not going to think that right now. That's not helpful. I hear you. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but right now I'm going to open my mental door and escort you out and close the door on you. We're going to talk about how you can intercept your saboteurs so that you can then engage your higher order thinking, engage your sage brain, so that then you can take laser focused action. So I want to talk to you now about how we can do that. What are some of the success strategies that you can use to intercept those saboteurs and start to engage your higher order thinking? I encourage you to, first of all, I should say we will have a recording of this call so that I, of course, welcome you to take as many notes as are helpful, but don't feel that you have to take notes of every single thing, because after the call, it'll probably be tomorrow once it's edited or clipped a little bit, but I will send you the link to the recording of this call so that you can come back to it if you need to. Okay, that said, I would encourage you to practice your mindset, practice these strategies every time you are practicing GMAT questions. Don't say, oh, I'm going to try that on the practice exam, or let me wait and try that on the real exam. Start practicing it already, because what we're talking about is building mental muscle, building positive mental habits that will help you achieve your goals. One of the first ways, it is super easy, it is super portable. And I will tell you, for a long time, when people gave me this advice, I was like, this is so dumb. I felt like people didn't respect me when they gave me the advice for the first strategy to breathe. It's really used to get under my skin when people would say, oh, you just need to breathe. Take a deep breath. I felt like they were not respecting the whatever situation I was in. But the truth is, there is extraordinary scientific evidence that breathing effectively can indeed dramatically change your mood. Specifically, it can help you diffuse that lizard brain, diffuse that fight, flight, or freeze mode, to help you turn off the saboteurs so that you can engage your higher order thinking. I want to talk to you about 2 specific breathing exercises that you can try during your prep, during a practice test, and even during the exam if you need to, if you find that feeling. If you want to diffuse lizard brain and create a sense of calm, I would encourage you to try a breathing exercise that's called 4-7-8 breathing. And we're going to try it now and see where it goes for us. So the 4-7-8, this refers to the counts for breathing in, holding, and then breathing out. So we've just got 4 counts to breathe in, and in order to make that 7 and 8, let's make that a really deep breath in for 4 counts. So I invite you now to join me in this and see how you can feel the difference. So we're going to breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to hold it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and breathe out for 8. Through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's hard to hold it out for that long time. But it does encourage you when you do the next breath to take an even deeper breath in for the 4, so that you can hold it for the 7 and breathe out for the 8. This 4-7-8 breathing is also really useful if you need to go to sleep and you can't because your mind is running a million miles a minute. I know this can often happen when we're prepping for the exam. Try 4-7-8 breathing. One of the things that is powerful about it is that you spend more time with the hold and the out breath. And so this is able to, in many cases, decrease your blood pressure. Often it slightly decreases the amount of oxygen in your blood. And so that it kind of gives you that feeling after a while like you need to yawn. But this is very good for bringing your stress level down and diffusing that lizard brain. Another breathing exercise that you can try if you want to increase your focus is called box breathing. And so the idea of box breathing is that we have an even number of counts on each part of it. And so here we can count the in breath and holding it, and the out breath and holding it. So if we breathe in for 4 and hold it, and out for 4, and hold it. If you'd like to increase your focus, box breathing is a great way to go. Whenever you're doing breathing exercises, I highly encourage you to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. It's calming, it's healthy, the filtering function of your nose is useful. And what's great about breathing exercises, you can do them in the test. You can do them at home if you're doing the at-home version of the exam. You can do them in the testing center. It just might manage the amount of noise you make when you do your out breath, but they're portable and they can be extremely effective. Another success strategy that I would encourage you to look into if you have not already is looking at mindfulness meditation. And this is something that's often recommended to GMAT candidates, but many people feel like they don't know where to start. Um, Here are two different ideas I can give you for bite-sized mindfulness. One thing that you can do is to think about a sense. So, for example, your sense of sight or your sense of hearing. Focus on a single sense and describe to yourself in your mind everything that you notice. This can also be powerful if you start with a breathing exercise and then you focus on a single sense. This gives your mind something very specific to do. It can be a very nice way of not making any room for that saboteur's noise because you are so busy focused on this single sense. So, for example, if you decided to focus on your hearing, on your sense of hearing, you could focus on that sense and think about describing to yourself everything that you hear. If you are at home and maybe you live in a big city, you might listen for what's the furthest away sound that you can hear, or maybe what's the closest sound that you can hear. You could listen for the sound of your own breathing. You can listen to those things and describe them to yourself without judgment. Similarly, you could focus on a visual. So you could even look at your computer keyboard and focus on a single key and describe it to yourself. Look at the texture. Look at, is it shiny? Exactly what color is it? Can you see any spots on it? This kind of focusing on a single thing is a very good way to clear your mental tableau. There's no room for the saboteur on that. You're focused on a single thing in the present. Another technique that can be very helpful if you're feeling like your anxiety is intense is thinking about your sense of touch. And so, specifically, you can use an exercise called tense and release. So, with tense and release, you think about different muscle groups in your body and you really tense them up for 10 seconds and then relax. So, for example, if you tense up, say, your hands and your forearms, tense them. Try it with me. If you're feeling it, try it with me. Tense it for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then relax. That's a powerful one. You can do it then with other muscles in your body. You can try to tense up your feet, tense up your hamstrings, your quads, your butt muscles. You could squeeze it for 10 seconds and then relax. Especially those bigger muscle groups, you can get a really nice sense of calm coming from that. And again, those are things that you could do at your desk, in the testing center, wherever, in order to find that sense of calm, to get control over those saboteurs and start to activate your higher order thinking. Another success strategy I would like to encourage you to think about is curating your mental visuals. Think about what are the visuals that you have in your mind when you think about the GMAT. Do you think about the exam as like a mountain? Do you think about the exam as the clock ticking down in the corner? Do you think about it as that date on your calendar getting closer and closer? Is that a helpful visual for you? Visuals are powerful. As humans, we're very motivated by visuals. So I would encourage you to create a mental collection of visuals that will motivate you and that will help you feel confident. A technique that can be helpful is this one. Think about things that you have done in your life that you are proud of. Don't have to be academic, but they could be. Maybe it was putting up a curtain rod in your living room last week. I don't care. If it was something that gave you a sense of pride, think about that. You could jot some notes to yourself about that. But what's really powerful is to gather some images that represent different things in your life that you have accomplished that you are proud of. Maybe you have a collection of 4 or 5 different things that when you think about that, you're like, man, I did a great job. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And then think about an image that you want to represent the GMAT, and think about the GMAT as the next in the series of events in your life that you're going to be really proud of yourself for what you did. It belongs in that list. You might picture what the next things will be after that as well, but for our purposes, let's put the GMAT as the next thing that's going to happen in your life that you're going to be really proud of. Really take take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes, find visuals that represent these different things that you are proud of. Find a visual for the GMAT. You could put this next to your desk at home. You could put it as your screensaver on your phone. Take some time to contemplate that. When you are feeling down about the GMAT, when you are feeling anxious, come back to this. The GMAT is going to be the next thing that you are really proud of yourself for doing. Make this gallery so that you can see that visual. Another technique that works very well for athletes and can work well for managing test anxiety as well is the idea of making a mental movie. So, in this technique, this builds on the idea that if you envision something really thoroughly, if you spend some time envisioning it, you can trick your brain into thinking it has happened. So that's powerful in a negative way and in a positive way. Because if you are spending time right now predicting that the GMAT is going to go badly, if you are spending time making the mental movie, seeing yourself falling apart during the exam, you are tricking your brain into believing that has already happened. That's not what we want. Let's make a mental movie of you doing awesome on the GMAT. And so you can make a mental movie, for example, of what is it going to look like the day that I take the GMAT. What time am I going to wake up? What am I going to eat for breakfast? What time am I going to leave the house if I need to go to a testing center? Or what time am I going to sit down on at my computer and log in if I'm going to take the GMAT at home? And then picture yourself really taking the exam, and picture, for example, something negative happening. Picture, gosh, I got this crazy probability question that I had no idea how to handle, or I got this reading comprehension passage and I felt lost. But picture yourself overcoming it. Picture yourself handling it. It's really powerful to picture this negative thing happening in the concept or the context of the test, but picture yourself overcoming it. And then take some time and watch that mental movie. Watch that mental movie before you go to bed. Watch that mental movie before you take a practice test. Watch that mental movie before you do the real exam. By rewatching this mental movie of you doing great, you can trick your brain into thinking this has already happened. And this is very much the feeling that you want to have when you go to take the real exam. You want to feel like, I am just going to do what I've always done, and I know the result is going to be there for me. This is not like I'm going to make some magical Herculean effort and do something I've never done before. Most of the time, this is not our best path. Our best path is to go into it feeling like, ah, yeah, it's like taking my daily commute to work. I know what I'm going to do. I've done it before. I know it will deliver for me. That's the mental visuals. Another success strategy that can be powerful is to get your thoughts on paper. I know a lot of people, like, say you are working in a startup or you're working in a highly charged environment where you've got a million things going on, and it's all that you can do to keep track of all your work responsibilities, let alone then try to prep for the GMAT in the times that you're not at work. Sometimes this means that your work responsibility thoughts are actually getting in your way when you're trying to do the GMAT. Like, you read the whole reading comprehension passage and you realize, I don't know anything that just said, because I wasn't really thinking about that reading comprehension passage. I was thinking about this presentation I gave yesterday at work and what the directors responded to me about that. If you realize when you sit down to practice the GMAT, or take a practice test or whatever, if you realize that your head has got a million other thoughts, maybe not saboteur thoughts, maybe like other stuff that you actually need to handle, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, get a blank piece of paper and write down all that stuff. You could also leave yourself a voice message about it. That can also be helpful. Many of us, though, respond better to, like, your brain feels more satisfied if it sees the things all written down. And then it's like, ah, she listened to me. I can stop bothering her about this. So when you look at that list, you can triage, okay, is there actually something I really need to handle right now before I start practicing for the GMAT? If not, if it can wait for an hour or 2 hours, depending on how long you want your practice session to be, turn the page. You come back to this great list that you made. Turn the page and set some intentions for what you want to do now with your daily practice. Okay, so we've talked about things you can do before the exam. Let's think about things you can do during the exam. And so by this, I mean during practice sessions, during practice exams, and during the real exam. One of the most powerful things that you can do, and a lot of what we're talking about here, is manage your self-talk. Manage the way that you are speaking to yourself during practice questions and during the real exam. And so what we want to go for is positive talk before you get started. And in the moment of looking at questions, instructional talk. And I'm going to show you what I mean here with a little comic. So I have an American baseball analogy, but I think you'll see what I mean here. So here's our baseball player. And in the first panel, it's before the game gets started, and you can see he is talking to himself with some positive self-talk. He says, today's going to be a great game. I'm excited to be out here today. So before we sit down to practice, this is very applicable. So for example, maybe you've done this brain dump of all the things from work you're ready to stop thinking about right now. Now you can turn the page and write some positive messages to yourself. I'm excited to work on number properties today. I'm looking forward to getting better at assumption questions today. Today I'm going to tackle multi-source reasoning. I know it's tough, but if I can make an improvement, this is really going to benefit me. So give yourself some positive self-talk before you get started. You can see in the middle, our player is engaging in negative self-talk before he gets started. Maybe some of you have done this. You sit down to practice or take a practice exam and you start talking to yourself like, oh, I know this is going to go badly. I don't want to do this. I just want to be anywhere other than here. That negative self-talk, as you all have experienced, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you hear it, do one of the strategies to intervene. So whether that's focus on a particular sense, do tense and relax, do a breathing exercise to intervene, and then make a conscious choice to talk to yourself in a way that will help you and that will motivate you. When it comes to actually looking at problems and solving problems, what is extremely helpful to do is instruct yourself what to do, what steps to take next. Many of my students have told me, oh, wow, this is so weird. When we look at a question together and I'm telling you about the question, then I know how to do it. When I'm telling you about the steps to do, I know how to do it. It's because in that moment, they're doing instructional self-talk. So here our baseball player says to himself, he's doing this slide maneuver. And so what he's saying in his mind is not, oh, I hope it works, or, oh crap, it's not going to work. But actually he is saying exactly what maybe the way he was taught to do it. He's telling himself, keep your hands up and one leg under the other one when you're sliding. You can do this for yourself on reading comprehension, on critical reasoning, on data analysis, on quant questions. Tell yourself the steps to do, especially when you find other thoughts intervening. Do one of those strategies to intercept those negative thoughts, and then you can replace it with the steps of what to do. First, I will read the question. Then I will look at specifically what's being asked. Then what will I write down? Decide how I will organize the information. Tell yourself the steps to do that helps you get control of the situation. Okay. Some more game time strategies for us in the moment of thinking about what you say to yourself about the time. So it's one thing for me to tell you doom time is a saboteur, right? That voice saying, you don't have enough time. You don't have enough time to do this well. You should go faster. That's a saboteur. You may, though, want to say something to yourself about the time. So let's think about something useful, constructive, and motivating that you could say to yourself about the time. So there are two mantras that students that I've worked with have found can work for them. You may find another one, but maybe you'll be inspired by these. One of them is the idea that time is a resource for me to use. So it's true, just like in business, we don't have unlimited resources, right? We don't have unlimited human resources. We don't have unlimited financial resources. We don't have unlimited time resources. So it is a finite resource, and many of you on the call are managers or you aspire to be managers. So we want to manage the time, but let's think about that in a way that empowers you. The time is a resource for me to use. So I want you to feel like you are in the driver's seat when it comes to the time, and not that the time is managing you. Right? Many of us start to get this feeling like you see the clock ticking down over here and you feel like it's telling you what you can and can't do. I want you to flip the script and think about, no, I'm the manager. I'm the manager of this exam. GMAT does not manage me. I manage the GMAT. And yes, I have limited resources, and the time is a resource for me to use. I'm going to use it wisely. I'm going to invest that time in getting questions correct. Or I'm going to invest that time in using the techniques and strategies that I've learned to deliver. Another mantra that can be helpful, that has resonated with many of my students, is the idea I want to use the time to show what I know and show what I can do. If you tell yourself, you know what, I have done good preparation, I know a lot about this test, and I can do a lot, I'm going to use the time to show that. Again, brings the power back to you, not gives the power away to the test. Don't give the power away to the clock. When you're doing practice questions, when you're doing a practice exam, when you're doing the real exam, if you realize that your focus is not there, invest some time in a mini break. For many people, it would be far better, and you will get far better results if you invest 30 seconds, for example, in a breathing exercise, in a sensory focus exercise, or even just a mental vacation to a positive memory. You may have, so there have been some studies that have people think of a positive, fun memory right before they took a math test. And that in these studies, they found that indeed the people who thought of a positive or funny, entertaining memory before they took a math test did better on the math test. Changes your mood, it lightens the mood. That's helpful. Think about actively taking charge. When you see that your focus, your mindset is not where you want it to be, take charge and invest in a break. That's a good use of your time. It will raise your score. Finally, I promised that I would talk to you about success strategies to work on after the exam. So whatever happens with your practice test, I would encourage you to adopt the SAGE perspective. So this is an idea in the positive intelligence system that every situation represents a gift or opportunity. If you take a practice exam and it does not go as you want to, you may well feel disappointed. You may well feel frustrated with yourself. You may need to take a beat, go do something else. You may not be able to access the SAGE perspective right away, but you might be able to access it a few hours later or the next day. And so the idea is, what is the gift or opportunity that this situation has brought to me? Is it the gift of knowledge? If the practice test didn't go the way that you want, did that actually teach you something though? Did it teach you maybe what you don't want to do? Did it teach you which areas you need to refresh? Are there certain content areas that you're weak in? That a practice test perhaps can give you this gift of knowledge. It can tell you things you don't want to do. It can tell you where you need to focus your next efforts. It could also be that a negative experience or something that hasn't gone the way that you wanted it to could give you the gift of power. It could make you stronger at something. And so many of us feel like this after our GMAT journey, that you got stronger. You got mentally stronger, you got emotionally stronger. Indeed, it could help you feel stronger. And finally, it could be that the gift or opportunity is the gift of inspiration. A negative practice test you could look at, well, this is inspiring me to do something different in the future. It's inspiring me to maybe look for different test prep support, look for different material. It's inspiring me maybe to take charge of my mental fitness, for example. So I would encourage you, after an exam, particularly after a practice exam or a real exam that did not go the way that you want, give yourself a beat, but come back to this and ask, where's the gift in this? Where is the opportunity that this presents to me? So that takes us through some before, during, and after strategies that you can use. And now I am curious to hear, in the chat, are there some of these strategies that you will commit to trying in the next week? Because just listening to me talk about this hopefully is helpful, but it's even more helpful if you try some of these, if you put them into practice so that you can start to develop these mental muscles. If you will try breathing exercises, or maybe you want to try instructional self talk, if you want to try changing what you say to yourself about time management, you can write that in the chat. If you want to think about finding the gift or opportunity, you can write that in the chat. I'd like to see you make a commitment to try at least one of these. I see I've got 2 people saying already, I'm ready to try all of these in the next week. Are there any of these that spoke to you in particular? You could write in the chat. See the mindfulness break and breathing exercise. Muscle tensing already is working. Great to hear. Yeah, that thing is crazy how powerful that can be. Mindfulness breaks. Breathing exercises and curating your mental visuals. Excellent. Time management and positive self-talk. Good, good. Keep it coming. So we're going to have a couple minutes here at the end for your questions. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that I'm offering on the platform in case you're interested in working together. So lasting positive change comes from a mix of insight, but then building mental muscle. And so today, we're hopefully giving you some insight into how you could take control of your mindset for the GMAT, but where this is really going to become a change and something that lasts for you, and something that, as I said, I want this to be something you can bring into your MBA program or your master's program, bring it into your work environment. You want to have this mental muscle that helps you feel mentally fit. And so I've developed some packages that I'm offering, you can see on Leland, where we will work on your GMAT training as well as positive intelligence training. So I'm calling these packages Zen Under Pressure. So where you get the opportunity to train in the positive intelligence system. So if you sign up for one of these packages, you will get access to a 6-week training program that that helps you develop the ability to use mindfulness in your daily life, helps you recognize saboteurs in your daily life, and helps you build that muscle to quickly recognize them, diffuse your saboteurs, and activate your sage brain. So these packages include one-on-one GMAT tutoring and coaching with me, where of course we can talk about quant, verbal, data insights, but also we can talk about what you're thinking about those. And very often this is the powerful way to unlock your best performance. In addition, if you're in one of these packages, we will have some small group discussions with other motivated candidates who are also trying to make changes in this area. This is also really motivating. So it's not just Jennifer saying you should do this, but when you hear from other people around the world who are working through the same things and who are finding positive changes as well, this is really powerful. So thank you so much to Amanda, who's on the call. She's been dropping in the links here. So we've got the QR code, but you've also got the links in the in the chat to where you can book a free intro call with me so that we can talk about your goals, but also think about what are some of the concrete steps that you can take to achieve them. And I hope you will take advantage of this discount code that I'm not giving to anyone else other than you all on the call today. So that said, I know we're getting toward the end of the hour, but I am able to stay on for 10 minutes past the hour. I am very happy to take your questions. So I think we've got enough of us on the call. The best way to do questions may be to put them in the chat. So if you've got a question that you would like, you are welcome. Ben and Sid, you're definitely welcome. If you've got a question that you would like to ask, GMAT related, mindset related, I am here for you. I would be very happy to address your questions. I'm happy to stay on a few more minutes. And for those of you that do have to go now, you're very welcome, guys. If you do have to go now, I thank you for making the time, for joining the call. I hope it's been helpful, and I would be looking forward to hearing from you about, did you try these out? Did you try out some of these strategies today, tomorrow, the next day? right? This positive change is going to come not just from us talking about it, but from you really trying it out. For those of you that are still on, though, I'm open for your questions. So if you want to write a question in the chat, there's no more sentence correction anymore in the GMAT, so I'm not worried about anybody's grammar or punctuation. Haha. But I'm very open to any questions that you have, anything GMAT related. I'm really glad to hear that it was helpful, Hamad. That's that is definitely my goal. It has frustrated me for years when I see people who are so smart and so competent and so clearly ready to make positive changes in the world. Um, and that somehow what's going on with the GMAT is getting in their way. We don't want it to be that, right? We want it to be the next thing in your life that you can be proud of. So, yep, exactly. Exactly. It is a mental challenge about how you manage the situation. And you can manage it. You absolutely can. And I hope that as you develop these skills, that then they really can benefit you. What should I do if these alternatives did not help me at all? So, first of all, I would give these alternatives a good chance, like give them a real chance. Feel free to book an intro call with me, especially like if you try out a couple of these and you find that there's not a difference at all. It can be too that there could be some other things that are going on underlying what's causing you anxiety. There could be some other, for example, difficult situations in your life or difficult situations in your past that may make it difficult to handle this anxiety. If that's the case, sometimes it can make the most sense to reach out to a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor if you realize there's actually something else going on, like it's manifesting itself in my GMAT prep, but it's maybe actually based in something else that has been the root of these issues for me. And that sometimes then that's the best step. And that's really a very positive step because that can help set you up again for great success in your future. Yeah, Hamad, I totally agree. It's a different group of skills, different ability to manage yourself compared to other university tests. The fact that it is finding your level and then meeting you at that level. And so if you're used to performing at a high level, yeah, there's no easy questions then for you on the GMAT. When you're performing at a high level, it's going to continue to challenge you. But we want that to feel like an exciting thing, a positive thing, a motivating thing, and not one that makes you question yourself. I'm open if anybody else has got another question. Otherwise, you're very welcome, of course. Um, Otherwise, I welcome you. Oh, I see someone on camera. If you'd like to unmute and ask your question, you're welcome to. Or do I need to unmute you? Hang on. No, just by accident. Okay, no worries. Okay. Good, good. Then I will say thanks to you all for being on again, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Please do not hesitate to contact me in Leland. You can easily chat with me in the Leland app. You can really easily book an intro session. I'd love to help you reach your goals and move on to the next great adventures and the next great things that you're going to be proud of. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your evening, depending on where in the world you are. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care, guys.